Hi, my name's Ashley, and I want to tell my labor and delivery story. I'll start off by saying I am 24, and I wanted to make this video because my son's almost 3 months old, and I already find myself forgetting some things, and I just want to kind of make a video that I could look back on and watch, and I don't want to forget anything. So when I was around 32 weeks pregnant, I went into premature labor. I went to the hospital on a Thursday, and they were able to stop my contractions, and they released me that Friday. And since they weren't sure how long they were going to be able to push him off, they gave me a steroid shot. So I went back the next day for the second steroid shot. And if you don't know what that is, it's for the baby's lungs, so that if he was born premature, it kind of helps them mature, so he would have less issues, hopefully. So I went back that Friday in the morning and got my second shot. And then that night, I actually ended up in the hospital again with contractions. This time they tried a different medicine, and it took a lot longer for them to stop it. And actually, his heart rate was slower than they would like it to be, and he wasn't moving as much. And he's a very active baby when he's in my tummy, and is still to this day. His legs are always moving. So they eventually stopped it and released us around 9 in the morning on Saturday, and that Saturday was actually my baby shower. So we were exhausted, and just I barely remember my baby shower. I know there were so many friends and family there, and I know I had fun, and it was so great, but really I kind of felt like a zombie. Because I hadn't slept really in like 48 or more hours. So then I was good. After they stopped at that time, I didn't really have contractions like that again. Kind of, not really. I actually ended up having, I forget what it's called, but I had contractions from that week through the rest of my pregnancy every single night, starting around 5 to 6 p.m. and lasting until the rest of the night, until I can make myself go to sleep, really. I can't remember what that's called, but sorry. Yeah, so then around 37 weeks, I started getting really itchy. Not like dry skin itchy, or not like I had a rash. I didn't have any rashes or anything. And not an itch I've ever felt before. It was all over my body. It was mostly in the bottom of my feet and my hands. And it was really worse at night when I was trying to go to bed. So, of course, I Googled it, which I don't suggest doing when you're pregnant, or really ever, because it's never good. But I'm glad I did this time, because I found that those symptoms could be cholestasis. And if you don't know what that is, it's something, I don't know exactly what it is, but something with your liver enzymes. And it's not really a big deal for you. Like for me, it was just really itchy for me, but for the baby, it's really bad. They could become, they could turn into a stillbirth. It's really not not something you want to have. So I called my doctor the next morning, and he had me come in for a blood test, and they said this is what it sounds like, but I don't know. But we'll do the blood test anyway. So they said they'll get back to me in a few days. A few days passed. I called a couple of times. They still didn't answer. I called the next day, they still didn't answer, and that was a Friday, and they're closed on the weekend. So that next Monday, next Monday, when I was 38 weeks, I want to say, because I flipped over on a Saturday, turned to next week. They called and they said, oh, your liver enzymes were a little high, but nothing to be concerned about, so you're okay. So I wanted to be relieved by that, but the itching had just been getting worse and worse, and I kind of knew in my gut that wasn't, that I knew I had it, but I don't know if I just went too soon and they weren't high enough to be considered cholestasis, but I was like, okay, they know best, I guess. So then I went in for my appointment that week, and I had a group of 5 doctors, and it was just like whoever was working, that's who I had a schedule with, an appointment with, and I met with all of them throughout my pregnancy. So that next appointment, when I was 38 weeks, later that week, I had my favorite doctor, and I brought it up to him, and I was like, can you look at my results again? And the same thing, he said, it's not that high, but due to the fact that I had been having contractions every night for almost 7 weeks at that point, I wasn't dilating, and I have factor V lead-in, and if you don't know what that is, it's a protein C deficiency, and it's a blood clotting disorder. So basically it makes it more dangerous when you're pregnant. It usually causes more miscarriages, or it could lead to a blood clot to the baby or the placenta, and it could cause the baby not to grow as well. I'll make a separate video about the maternal fetal specialist that I went to and how that was kind of all watched over. So he said, we're going to induce you on Monday when you're 39 weeks, and yeah, we'll go from there. So I left, and I was really excited because I'd been so uncomfortable, and I just wanted him here and safe, and I just wanted that. So that day came. We got at the hospital around 7 p.m. They started, since I wasn't dilated, they started with Cervidil, and that was supposed to kind of help, I hate this word, but ripen the cervix. And so they did that and gave me something to sleep. It was awful. I don't drink. I have never drank in my life. But she warned me, this will make you feel drunk, and it's, especially since I've never been drunk, it's gonna make me feel worse. And that it did. It was awful. I looked at my fiance, and I thought I was gonna fall off the bed, and I asked him if I was falling off the bed, and he was like, no babe, you're not falling off the bed. And then I guess I just fell asleep because I don't remember anything after that. And the only reason I know that story is because he told me later on. So that morning they checked me again, and I was dilated to about 2 centimeters, I believe. So they were like, okay, that was pretty good, but wanted you to do a little more than that, since it was like about 12 hours after they started it. So they used a Foley bulb, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically like a balloon that they put into your cervix and then fill with water to kind of expand it. And it's as awful as it sounds. But luckily, since I was having such consistent, strong contractions, they were going to make me wait until I was 4 centimeters, which is on average how long they usually make you wait to get an epidural. But one of the nurses that was watching my chart actually came in, and she was like, do you want an epidural? And I was like, yes, please, thank you. So it wasn't so bad. So I got that, and I was feeling great. I was just like, okay, so I got my epidural, and I just have to sit here and wait and maybe take a nap and kill time, and then when it's time to push, cool. that was not what happened at all. So about 2 hours after I get the epidural and they did the Foley bulb, the doctor came in and checked me again, and I was at a 7, and I thought, that's great, cool. It was about 2 p.m. at this point. Like, awesome, I'm at a 7. I had my epidural, took the Foley bulb out, cool. Until I started having breakthrough contractions. They started breaking through, and they had told me that if I have breakthrough contractions, I could push the thing and it'll give me like an extra dose for the epidural. What I didn't know is I had terrible sciatica my entire pregnancy. After around 17 weeks, I could not walk. I could do one thing a day, whether that was do dishes, which I wasn't supposed to do, but I mean, they gotta be done. Or like a little laundry, or like shower, one thing, and then for the rest of the day, I couldn't walk. And I'm like a pretty tough person, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't walk. And I had known people with sciatica, and like I was always like, I've had back pain. I don't get it. Like, it really hurts you, but I don't understand what that feels like. I understand what that feels like now. And it was not an enjoyable experience. So the anesthesiologist came back in because I was in excruciating pain by this point. It was around 4 p.m., I want to say, and he asked me, like, before, I didn't know that it was because of sciatica. I thought the epidural just stopped working. So he asked me if I had sciatica in my pregnancy, and I said yes, and he said, this is what it is, and the medicine doesn't get to it, and this is just, there's nothing he can do. And when you're in that much pain, and you've been at a 7 for, like, hours, and you haven't been doing anything, and you're just in pain, and that's the last thing you want to hear, that he can't help your pain. So I was just feeling pretty defeated by that point. So he gave me another dose through, like there's a thing connected up here that goes under your back, so it goes straight in instead of just dripping from the IV. So he did that, and it helped a little bit, and I honestly, during this time, I was in so much pain, I don't remember it all that well. I was like in and out of sleep. I was exhausted. It was almost 24 hours in labor. I know people have had worse, but so they took my temperature around 5. They've been taking it periodically since I got there. It's just what they do. They take your blood pressure, your temperature, and they were like, well, you're starting to develop a fever, and since you have cholestasis, and I said, what? I was told I didn't have cholestasis 2 weeks ago, so I was in too much pain to really grasp how angry I was. That would come later, but for 2 weeks, I was putting my son at risk, and had no idea because the doctors had told me I didn't have it, but that means 2 of my doctors had read my chart wrong, and I really did have it, and I'm just thankful at this point that nothing happened to my son. I mean, that's really all that matters, but the next time I'm pregnant, should I feel those symptoms again, I'm definitely going to push it a lot farther and a lot harder than I did, because that was not okay. So then I was developing a fever, and so they said, you haven't been progressing for quite a few hours. This is around 5:15, 5:30, maybe a little earlier than that, I'm not sure. And so we don't know if there's an infection or why you have a fever, so we're going to go ahead and give you an emergency C-section. And when I say I was excited to have a C-section, that sounds crazy, but I was excited to have a C-section because I knew that meant that this baby was coming out of me and I was not going to be in pain anymore, And those feelings lasted until I got on the operating table. And then I was like, oh shoot, I am terrified, but also excited, and all those feelings. And if you've ever had a baby before, you know what I'm talking about. So my anesthesiologist was really great, and he was he was also a bit of a, he tried to keep the mood light. And when you're in that situation and you've been through in labor for almost 24 hours, you don't want to hear jokes. At least I didn't. So while they were prepping me, I was like, I still feel them. I still feel them touching me. Like I feel this. Like, I was terrified. I was like, please don't do this, but I can still feel you. So then he was like, do you feel this? I was like, yes. Do you feel this? Yes. And he was like, well, I could tell you it's working. And I said, but I could feel you. How is it working? And he said, well, if you saw what was going on the other side of the drape, like I can, you would know that it was working. And I just froze. I was like, oh, okay. So then my son was born at 6:08 p.m. They brought him over the curtain for me to see. It was the most indescribable, amazing feeling I have ever in my life. My fiance doesn't cry for anything, nothing at all, and he cried, and it was so sweet. He looked at me and he was like, I love you, but can I go see our son? And I was like, I'm glad you said that, because I was just about to tell you to leave and go with him. So yeah, he was born at 6:08. He weighed 6 pounds, 14 ounces, and he was either 19 or 20 inches long. We don't know, and we were so exhausted and so like that we didn't realize until we got home that he has 2 different measurements for his height. So I guess we won't really know. He was 19 or 20 inches long when he was born. And yeah, I mean, the rest, I stayed in the hospital until that Friday, because you stay longer when you have a C-section. It got released. I actually end up back in the hospital that night, but I'll save that for a different story. But yeah, that was my labor and delivery story, and now he's here, and he's almost 3 months old, and he is amazing. Yeah. But I'll show you what my tummy looks like almost 3 months postpartum. Oh wow, I don't think it's even gonna, holy white belly. Let's see if we can focus that. There you go. I got tons. I didn't have any stretch marks until I was like 36 weeks, and then I saw one, and then I swear the next morning it just exploded, and it was insane. But yeah, that's it. That's my story. I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time.